Now this, friends, this is a good book. This is a safe book. This is a good book. This book does all the things that a book needs to do. And we're going to get into that in this review. So this is In Defense of Looting by Vicki Osterweil. And as an ally to the trans community, I'm a big supporter of Vicki. And this book is subtitled A Riotous History of Uncivil Action. So this book came out just in the nick of time in, I believe, spring of 2020, right about the time the BLM riots and protests, I really shouldn't even use that word. That's a loaded word to say rioting. That's the protests against police brutality. And this book put forth the idea that looting is, in a way, almost a form of, kind of a form of reparations, but it's also one of the strongest, most powerful tools in the civil unrest toolbox to bring about positive change. And I'm just going to read you some of the chapters here, and then we're going to get into some of the my thoughts on this. But again, this came out in 2020, and the chapters are just amazing. The first chapter is the racial roots of property. Chapter 2, looting emancipation. 3, all cops are bastards. 4 is white riot. 5, looted bread, stolen labor. 6, no such thing as nonviolence. 7, using guns nonviolently. 8, civil riots. And 9, the inhumanity of looters. Conclusion, out of the flames of Ferguson. So this is a fascinating book in that it's making a compelling case for why looting is not just excusable, but actually preferable in times of civil unrest to bring about social change. And I marked this section. I wanted to see. It was talking about this event that happened in Monroe. Oh, I can't remember if it's Monroe, Louisiana. I lost my place. I so apologize for in Monroe, North Carolina. Where guns were used to leverage some action against some segregationists in North Carolina. And the main thing I wanted to get to in this review, the main thing I wanted to get across to you is books like this. This is why these are so important. A lot of people have probably forgotten about this book. This is one of those that was probably just a blip on the radar to a lot of people. But books like this are not designed to get people like us to go out and loot. These are designed for people, again, a different crowd than you, the discerning viewer, that might need help understanding why things are happening around them. So this helps do a couple of things. On one hand, it helps make sure that the audience to a lot of what's happening does not take action that could hurt the narrative. So I mentioned in my commentary about, does it help the narrative? Does it support the narrative? And we have to ask ourselves that. And this supports the narrative. This is probably one of the best things in support of the narrative. And the general public, as they watch this stuff unfold, they need to know that what they're seeing is in support of the narrative, of the greater good. And this book helps that happen. So now, obviously, the number of people that are going to buy a book like this is exceedingly small. But this is where the second part of the purpose of this book comes into play. Is this book is a great way to allow interviews and discussions to occur on National Public Radio or on a lot of talk shows and things like that, that allow a discussion to occur that can then explain to the general public why looting is acceptable. And so even though the book may not be cited directly, it can be used as kind of a prop or a jumping off point for those discussions. And that's really important because, again, as I mentioned in my commentary, we have to ask ourselves, does it support the narrative? And we need that. The legacy media is our partner in this fight against disinformation. And we are the chorus. We work with legacy media to echo these talking points to make sure we bring about good change. And in times of civil unrest, we need to make sure everyone is focused on the right things in the right way and thinking the right things. And it would be easy for someone lesser evolved and lesser enlightened to flip on their television set and be horrified by something they saw on TV. And this book is a fantastic tool to kind of bring people back to the right mode of thinking, to remind them that what they're seeing is actually an important part of civil unrest, an important part of social change. So it could be very wrong-headed to get hung up on the individual businesses and the individual people affected by looting. You have to think in this big picture kind of mentality so that you can see where you have to think about the overall goals of things and not about individuals. And you have to start thinking in a collective form. So, excellent book. And I might come back to this because there were a few things I wanted to bring up, and my little monkey brain is not thinking of all the stuff I originally thought of for this. But fantastic book and a safe book. And that's what's important. On this channel, I really want to make sure that you, the discerning viewers, know what the safe books are, the good authors, the allies out there that are working with us in this fight. This fight for the narrative. And I say narrative, I want to really bear down on that because truth is one of those words that has a lot of baggage attached to it and could trip people up in a lot of ways. So it's important that we think about what is good for the narrative and how do we advance that narrative. And again, sometimes that narrative goes all the way around in crazy places, just like a good story should. And we need to make sure we act in support of that. So In Defense of Looting is definitely one of those books. From 2020, Vicki, Osterweil, fantastic, totally awesome book. And probably can find this on Amazon, probably get it on the cheap these days.